Hello and welcome to Bloodsport MMA.
Salam alaikum. Ali.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How did it emerge? Who founded it? What's the history of it? Why is it so important now? All of that in that video, guys. But do not only tap when you're training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, also tap on the subscribe button right now. I would highly appreciate that. Leave us up, leave a like, leave a comment, would help me a lot. Thank you so much. And now let's start. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was founded in 1925 by the brothers Carlos, Gustavo Jr., Osvaldo, George, and Helio Gracie, if I'm not mistaken. These were the brothers that kind of founded the foundation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now you might ask yourself, how did they found it? How did it start? And that's pretty late, 1925, right? It's still a new martial art, but we'll get to that later. So it actually all started with the Japanese people having a war in their country. I think it was at the beginning of the 1900s, but I'm not a history teacher, so what do I know? But many Japanese people flew the country and came to Brazil. That's also why, until now, to this day, there's a huge Japanese community in Brazil. If you go to Brazil, of course, they're a little bit mixed right now with Brazilian people over the years, but there's still a huge Japanese community there. Like, for example, if you know MMA, Lyoto Machida, former UFC champion, who is from Japan originally, but is a Brazilian, you know what I mean? So many Japanese people came to Brazil, and there was this Japanese martial art called Japanese Jiu-Jitsu or Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not really sure the difference of it, but let's just call it Jiu-Jitsu because like that it's easier to differentiate from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So because there were so many people immigrating from Japan to Brazil, of course these people also somehow needed to make a living or at least earn some money. And especially back in the day in Asia, it was very common that you learn or practice your traditional martial art, which for Japanese people is predominantly Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So there were many people that came to Brazil from there that were masters or at least at a very advanced level of this sport, of this whatever you want to call it.
This is Bruce Lee shit.
And they then started to teach that in Brazil, opening schools, giving private classes, whatever, to earn some money. So that's how the sport started to come to Brazil a little bit and gain attention. So then a very famous or highly named Japanese Jiu-Jitsu practitioner from Japan, who goes under the name of Mitsuyo Maeda, was sent overseas to spread the martial art of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. This was in the year of 1904. Gave showings, like brought the martial art closer. It was not like today where he just went into a dojo and gave some seminars. It was of course a little bit different. And then many years later, in 1917, Carlos Gracie, who was the oldest son or the oldest brother of these Gracie brothers that I mentioned in the beginning, ended up going to one of these showings in a theater of Maeda. So he was there and he really liked what he saw. So he asked Maeda for the permission to be taught by him, to be a student of him. Because in these traditional martial arts, it's not just, hey, I make a gym subscription at your place, I come and train. It's like you are a student of the teacher, then, very traditional. And he allowed him to be a student of him and teach him. And for like 5 to 6 years, Carlos Gracie was training there under Maeda and at the same time passed the knowledge, passed the training system, the martial art to his brothers. And there was his younger brother, Helio Gracie, who was a very tiny, small man, just like Henry Cejudo. And the problem for him was that Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is very much based on judo. Like it's very heavy on the takedown aspect and not that much, of course as well, but not that deep like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu nowadays on the leverage thing, like using your leverage and also on the ground, like focusing a lot on the ground. It was more judo based, let's say like that, with a lot of throws, a lot of things that you use power for, strength. And he was a tiny little dude. He was not able to perform some of those techniques. So they then started to develop kind of their own system of it. So they started to implement a lot of things that use leverage and a lot of ground game techniques. Because if you ever grapple with somebody, of course, strength is a very important factor, but still on the ground, strength is much less needed than like if you try to wrestle someone, right? And especially because of the leverage things, also on the ground, there's a lot of sweeps like if you change the position, that uses leverages, that where you don't just hold them and lift him up or something. With leverage, especially with the gi, that's a gi that I'm wearing right now, where you can, pull somewhere, use it to have more leverage. So they focused on that, and of course that wasn't in one day, but slowly and steady over the years, like simultaneously, that while Carlos was training at Maeda, or with Maeda, they developed their own game of it. So in 1917, he started to train with Maeda. In 1925, which is 7 years later, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of emerged. But it all started with the name Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. At the beginning was called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu because it was from the Gracie family, from the brothers, and it was their own version of it. So then, of course, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu started to spread, started to grow bigger, but the real breaking point, the real breakthrough point for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that made it one of the most beloved and effective martial art in martial art experts' eyes was that Royce Gracie, another Gracie kid, of course, another generation than the ones I've mentioned, came to the UFC. UFC 1, there was a tournament. UFC was not like today, where they all have perfect rules and they all were the same. UFC 1 was just your martial art against your martial art. You can come with boxing gloves and with shoes. You can come barefoot with Thai boxing gloves, like whatever you want. You can come bare knuckle if you want, whatever you want. And the Royce Gracie was the one that came with a gi, with this thing, and showed everyone how effective Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, because he came in and smashed everybody. Come here for everybody, kill everybody, brother. And he really tapped everyone and showed everyone how effective Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is and what a crazy martial art it is. And that's really then how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu got so famous, and now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a part of every MMA gym. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is your #1 martial art when it comes to the ground game. Of course, takedown, #1, wrestling, but on the ground, #1, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's really how it all started, how it emerged. If you want to know more, if you want to have a breakdown like this about other martial arts, Aikido, Thai boxing, whatever it is, write it in the comments, guys. I would highly appreciate that. As I said, subscribe to this channel, like this video. Thank you so much in advance, and most importantly, for yourself, eat your vegetable, guys. Until next time, bye-bye. Bloodsport out.
Eat your vegetables.